heard about David and Goliath? David was this little kid, Goliath was this big bloke, and Goliath was on the enemy's side, and David was sort of, like running around looking after his father's sheep. One of the things that we like in our community, in our Australia, is power. We love power, don't we? We want our phones to be the most powerful phone that you can get. We want our cars to be the most powerful car to get. If you've got a motorbike, we want the motorbike to be the most powerful motorbike that we get. We dream about having power. We dream about having, big muscles like Arnie Schwarzenegger. We dream about having the fastest car on the block and all sorts of things. At least I did, especially when I was a teenager. I loved that sort of thing. And I think that as an Australian community, we are in love with power. We love to have power. We love to be able to be better than the next bloke, better than the next team. We want, if you're supporting the Broncos, I see a couple of one journey there. Yeah, right. What'd you say?
He said, go the Blues.
Go the Blues! Okay. If you're supporting the Blues, you want them to win every game. If you're supporting the Broncos, you want them to win every game. If you're supporting Queensland, you want them to win every game. And we all do it. Politicians do it. They're always telling everybody, you listen to Anastasia Palaszczuk, she's always telling people that Queensland is better than any other state in Australia. And it's probably true, unless you come from New South Wales, So we love power. We love to be first. We love to be the best. We love to be, but what happens if all of a sudden your power runs out? Your phone's no good if your battery runs out. My wife's phone has got a crook battery in at the moment, and she can only go a few hours.
Call for Marshall's,
That's right. Call for Marshall's, mate. Holler for a Marshall's, isn't it? See, her phone keeps on running out of power, and you want to see somebody cranky? You want to see my wife? She's a bit cranky when her phone runs out of power. So we want power all the time. I remember one time when I didn't pay the power bill, and we came home and we turned on the switch. You know how you turn on the switch and the lights come on? Well, the lights didn't come on. And my wife says to me, "What's going on?" And I said, "I don't know, the lights aren't coming on. Maybe there's a blackout." So we went back outside and all the street lights are on. All the neighbours got lights on. Everybody's got lights on except for us. And my wife looks at me and she says, "Do you know what's going on?" And I knew straight away. I knew that I hadn't paid the power bill, and because I didn't pay the power bill, they'd sent blokes to come around and turn the power off. And it's very sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really sad, because we didn't have enough power we didn't have power to run our lights, we didn't have power to run our fridge, we didn't have power to run our cooker so that we could cook tea. We couldn't even cook ourselves a piece of toast because we didn't have power. So when the power runs out, it's really crappy, right?
Right.
Agreed?
Yep.
Right.
Well, Israel was in a place where their power had run out. They were on one mountain, and the enemy, known as the Philistines, were on the other mountain. And every afternoon, round about the same time, the biggest, ugliest, most muscly, most warlike Philistine would come out. His name was Goliath, and he would say, "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Israel man," or something like that. He would say, "I'm going to fight you. You send out your biggest, ugliest, dirtiest, mongrelest fighter, and I'll fight him, and the winner takes it all." And of course, all the Israelites were looking at each other and going, "Are you going to fight him?" "No, I'm not going to fight him. You go and fight him." And the biggest Israelite was the king. His name was King Saul, and he was heads and shoulders above everybody else, and plus he was the king, so he's supposed to be like the man that goes out and does stuff that other people can't do, and a little bit like Matt, you know.
Oh, yeah,
And so they were all looking at King Saul and saying, "You're bigger than any of us, you go." And poor old King Saul was hiding in his tent. Nobody wanted to go and fight Goliath. That's like when the lights won't come on, right? That's like when there's no petrol in the car. That's like when there's no battery in the phone. There's no power. It's like when you want to get up and walk and you can't get up and walk. It's like, you know, there was a time when I was in hospital and I had this thing replaced, and I couldn't walk. They wouldn't let me out of bed, and when I did get out of bed, I fell over. I had no power to even walk to the toilet. They had to carry me. When you haven't got enough lights, when you haven't got enough power, when you haven't got enough petrol, when you haven't got enough diesel, when you haven't got enough electricity, when you haven't got enough battery, life really sucks. And these Israelites, standing on the top of this hill, knew what it was like to have no power. And along comes 15-year-old David, carrying a cheese under one arm and some bread under the other arm. And he goes to, take the cheese and the bread to his brothers, who were supposed to be fighting in the army, but they were just hiding in the army because they didn't want to go and see Goliath either. And Goliath comes out. He says, "You send somebody, you, and I will fight him. And the winner takes it all." And Goliath says, David says, "Who's that?" And his brothers say, "Oh, that's Goliath. We've been doing that for a few days now." He says, "Why don't somebody go and give him hiding?" And they said, we know what you're about. You just want to see the fight. You just want to see somebody die." He says, "I'll go and do it." Have you ever been in a place where everything's a Goliath? Have you ever been in a place where everywhere, it's not just the Goliath's on a hill on the other side of the valley, but Goliath's here, and you turn around and Goliath's here, and you turn around and Goliath's here, and you turn around and Goliath's here. Sometimes we got Goliaths everywhere. Sometimes we got no power to do anything because everywhere we look there's a Goliath. There's something that's too big, too powerful, too ugly, too everything. Sometimes life is just full of Goliaths. And it's so crappy you don't even want to get up in the morning. It's so ugly you don't want to go to bed at night because you're dreaming about the Goliaths. You're thinking about the Goliaths. And there's nothing you can do. There's nowhere you can go. There's nobody that really understands. And there's just one day after another day after another day, and you know that those Goliaths are always going to be there, and it's just awful. And what's worse is that when you're in a situation where you're surrounded by Goliaths, nobody gives a stuff. Nobody really cares. Nobody knows what it's like. And they'll say to you, "Oh, you just do this, just do that, just pick yourself up by your bootstraps." And you're going like, "I haven't even got bootstraps. Let alone pick myself up by them." And it's so crappy you can't even talk about it because you just know that nobody really will get it. Well, this 15-year-old David, 15-year-olds are the worst. 15-year-olds, they know everything. Anybody ever known a 15-year-old that knows everything? Anybody ever been a 15-year-old that knew everything? I was one of them. Oh yeah, we can do this. As 15-year-old David comes along and says, I can do this. But the difference between the 15-year-old that I was and the 15-year-old that David was that David had fought the bear and won, and David had fought a lion and won because he trusted in God, and he knew that his way out with Goliath was not in his own strength or his own smarts or his own things that he could do or think or be or say, but in what God would do for him.